Trump is celebrating a major victory after clinching several key battleground states and enough electoral votes to make it back to that White House. Now we're going to listen to Senate Leader Mitch McConnell addressing the U.S. Senate. He, of course, is the Republican leader and is talking after Republicans seized control of the Senate in last night's election as well. Let's listen.
I also want to commend the Trump campaign for running a sharper operation this time, and I think Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles deserve a lot of credit. They ran a spectacular race. With regard to the Senate, you guys know how long I've been around. I had really hoped I'd be able to hand over to my successor the majority. I've been the majority leader, I've been the minority leader. Majority's a lot better. And I think based on the fact that we haven't got all the results in, we certainly already know we're going to be in the majority. We're hopeful that that might actually grow some. And I want to give particular credit to Steve Daines. I had that job at the NRSC a few years back. I've never seen a better performance. He focused on getting quality candidates, making sure they actually got the nomination. And as I said, to some criticism, candidate quality is absolutely essential. I also am proud of the job the Senate Leadership Fund and its related groups did. Overall, they were able to raise $425 million, and they made decisions to invest in, I think, all the right places. I'll just run it down for you. They spent $29 million in Maryland, $42 million in Michigan, $60 million in Montana, $3.3 million in Nebraska, $12.8 million in Nevada, $133 million in Ohio, $82.7 million in Pennsylvania, $30 million in Wisconsin, and $3 million in West Virginia. So clearly what they were doing over there is focusing on the places where we had the best chance to win, and I think the results pretty much prove they made a lot of wise decisions. So with that, I'll be happy to see what you want to talk about.
Morning, Mr. Senate Republicans will have 54, 55, maybe even 56 seats before this is done. You have been an advocate of maintaining the filibuster. The former president, now the president-elect.
You know, I'm glad you raised that.
And what will you do outside of the leadership now to continue to advocate on that if there are forces here who try to get there?
I'm really glad you raised that. I should have covered that before. I think one of the most gratifying results of the Senate becoming Republican, the filibuster will stand. There won't be any new states admitted that give a partisan advantage to the other side. And we'll quit beating up the Supreme Court every time we don't like a decision they make. So I think this shifting to a Republican Senate majority helps control the guardrails to keep people who want to change the rules in order to achieve something they think is worthwhile is not successful. And so I think the filibuster is very secure. Yep.
Leader McConnell, practically speaking, what does having a 52 or 53 seat majority mean for getting Trump's agenda through the Senate compared to a 50 or 51 seat? And does this mean maybe you expand the agenda beyond the Trump tax cuts to explore other things, and what might those things be?
Well, we hear optimistic reports of what may have happened in the House, and obviously, if you were going to legitimately work around the filibuster, it would be through reconciliation. And so I think we'd be obviously more successful if we flipped the House. And Speaker, I think, put out a statement saying he's optimistic. I hope that's the case.
In March, you blamed former President Trump, President-elect Trump, and his inner circle on the delay to Ukraine aid. Are you confident that he's the best person to deter our adversaries?
Yeah, look, I'm here this morning to talk about the election, and I think I'm going to largely confine it to that.
Mr. McConnell,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about what you expect your role to be next year? When you're not in leadership? I know you've talked about foreign policy. You've got J.D. Vance as the vice president. He's obviously got diverging views from you on foreign policy.
Well,
what is your role going to be over the next 2 years?
Okay. I'm not going to speculate about what anybody else may be doing. I thought your question was what I was going to be doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to concentrate on defense and foreign policy. I think this is the most dangerous time since right before World War II. Our adversaries, North Koreans, Chinese, Russians, Iran, and Iran's proxies are all talking to each other. They have one thing in common: they hate us, and they want to diminish our role in the world. It may seem old-fashioned to some, but I'm still a Reagan Republican who thinks that America's role in the world is absolutely indispensable. Even if you're concerned about cost, it'd be interesting to know that at the height of World War II, 37% of our gross domestic product was being spent on the war. 37%, and we lost over 400,000 Americans. The Reagan buildup, without a shot being fired, was about 6% of GDP. We're currently spending 2.7. We need to ramp up defense spending in order to prevent a direct conflict with our adversaries. It's a lot cheaper to prevent war than it is to have one. And so that's the focus I'm going to have for the next couple of years.
Senator. Leader McConnell, do you plan to chair the appropriations subcommittee?
I haven't made a decision. I'm hoping as former leader, you guys will care what I think anyway, and I don't think it'll have anything to do with committee assignments. Yeah.
Are you anticipating any moves from the Democrats in the lame duck weeks coming up here?
Well, we are going to have to figure out how to finish up the year, and that always involves a conversation between Senator Schumer and myself as to how we wrap it up, but those conversations haven't started yet. Yeah.
Just a week before this election, your biography was released. And it included a lot of sharp criticisms of President Trump. Do you stand by those criticisms?
Yeah, I'm not here to do a book review this morning. Yeah.
Next week, your colleagues will choose the next majority leader. What should they take away from last night when they vote for the next leader?
What can I take from last night?
What should your colleagues take from last night when they choose the next leader?
Candidate quality is essential. Absolutely essential. And I think we had the best candidates everywhere yesterday.
You've been the majority leader in this situation with narrow majorities in the House and Senate. How challenging do you think it's going to be to keep the Republican Party together if you end up with full control?
Well, you're a bit of a student of history, Burgess. Since senators became popularly elected in 1914, my party's never had more than 55. Democrats had massive majorities during the 30s, during LBJ, during Barack Obama. So obviously, the higher we get, the better. But this is not 60 votes, which is what they had at the beginning of President Obama. So I think we did pretty well with narrow majorities during the previous administration. 3 new Supreme Court justices, 54 new circuit judges, comprehensive 30-year overdue tax reform. Yeah, I mean, it's harder, but I think we were successful before with a narrow majority, and I think we will be again.
Senator, looking at the results from last night, what do you take away from the mood of the country, where it is now, where it is headed, and how it lands according to your expectations?
Well, if you're looking for a simple answer, I think it was a referendum on the current administration, in part. People were just not happy with this administration, and the Democratic nominee obviously was a part of it.
In your role as former leader, moving forward, what do you think your level of engagement is going to be directly with the new Trump administration? Again, given your criticisms of the former president.
I'm going to do everything I can to help the new administration be successful.
Would you be in support of Elon Musk and RFK Jr. having positions in the cabinet for the next presidency?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Would you be in support of RFK Jr. and Elon Musk having positions in the cabinet, presidential cabinet, considering that Elon Musk has been reported to be in contact with Vladimir Putin and RFK Jr. has been accused of sexual assault?
One of the things about advancing age, if you all live as long as I do, you're going to have hearing aids on and have a hard time hearing a question like that. Why don't you come up here?
Florence Banks noticed. Would you be in support of Elon Musk and RFK Jr. having cabinet positions, considering that Elon Musk has been reported to be in contact?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that subject. Anything else related to what happened yesterday? Yeah.
We are watching Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell giving remarks there on Capitol Hill, celebrating that Republicans have taken back control of the Senate for 2025. The House still up for grabs. A few races there still too close to call. But there we have the Republican leader in the Senate talking about what happens now. And he says, among other advantages, that Republicans winning the Senate means the filibuster will stand, no new states will be added, and that, in his words, Congress will stop beating up on the Supreme Court for decisions it doesn't like. He says the guardrails will stay in place that act as a check of power on Congress, or at least on the Senate. I want to bring in ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks and ABC's Jay O'Brien for a little bit more on this. Mary Alice, we heard McConnell there say that you have to maintain the filibuster, and that was the first thing that he said when asked a question about what this means. He said, oh, yeah, I forgot the biggest thing. The filibuster stays in place. Talk about the significance of that.
Yeah, the question is, will he have the power to do that? This was him, I think, speaking directly to now President-elect Donald Trump, who we remember during his first administration advocated on many occasions for Republicans to get rid of the filibuster so that they could pass sweeping pieces of legislation easier. I mean, so that they wouldn't have to reach that 60-vote threshold. This was McConnell, a Senate institutionalist, saying that he wants to keep the filibuster in place. That would, of course, make it harder for Republicans to pass big pieces of legislation, because while they are going to take the Senate, it's unlikely they will hit that 60-vote threshold. You know, what's so interesting is that McConnell will not be the leader. You know, this is an outgoing leader who has talked about how he is turning over the reins of the Republican majority there in the Senate. But he is, like I said, an institutionalist that wants to keep some of these rules in place. And he did talk about how his priority will be working on defense. Again, another area where he diverges so profoundly with Trump, with J.D. Vance, with the sort of America First movement. I mean, we have seen McConnell be one of the staunchest advocates and supporters of defending Ukraine and America sticking with NATO. And of course, that has been such a sticking point in this election. And it'll be interesting to see if McConnell can wield any of that, as he said, sort of old Reagan Republican energy in the Senate in the new year, when there's clearly such a disagreement in the Democratic Party about how to stick with NATO or support Ukraine going forward.
And Jay, let's talk about that, because McConnell and Trump haven't always been on the same page, even when Trump was first in office. How do you see the dynamics of that changing with Trump in a second term and the rest of the election playing out where it is? Do you see any tension with the party, any areas where even Republicans act as a check on Trump, or does he have a party now fully coalescing behind him?
Well, let's look at the arc first of that relationship between Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. They work in lockstep very much as Donald Trump is president. Then they have that very public break when Mitch McConnell congratulates then President-elect Biden on his win in 2020. Then they have an even more of a break after January 6th. Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, resigns her position in the Trump cabinet as a result of Trump's actions on January 6th. A book comes out not long ago, actually, in which in that intervening period, Donald Trump, or Mitch McConnell says of Donald Trump that he was, quote unquote, the MAGA movement was wrong for the Republican Party. That is another element of things. And then, of course, they have this reconciliation in a way. They shake hands not long ago on Capitol Hill. Mitch McConnell clear that he wants to take control of the Senate and use Donald Trump in order to do that. And one of the things we've seen over the course of that electoral map last night is that there were key states where Donald Trump was able to propel Republicans, rather, to victory in the Senate. If you look at a state like Ohio, for instance, which was a state that was going to trend well for Donald Trump, but it was unclear if the incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown could pull out a win there and also have Donald Trump win that state. And then Bernie Moreno, the Republican there, kind of rides Trump's coattails to victory. If you look at Pennsylvania right now, which is still too close to call for us here at ABC News, the Republican there, Dave McCormick, is currently, and again, it's still too close to call, beating the incumbent Democratic Senator there, Bob Casey, by about 100,000 votes. That, again, largely on that new coalition of Trump voters voting a straight ticket Republicans I talked to say. Point being, Donald Trump was able to deliver for Mitch McConnell the one thing he really wanted, which was Republican control of the Senate. So Mitch McConnell puts all those kind of bygones aside, and they ride to this new Senate Republican majority, Diane.
All right, Mary Alice Parks, Jay O'Brien, thank you both.